NextGen Nation, and welcome back for the final time for this May Summit. For those of you that are just joining, welcome. My name is Emily Jarvis, and I lead the events team here at GovLoop. And I can't believe today is already coming to a close, but I'm not going to lie. I think we saved the best for last. We've got two incredible keynotes lined up to close out this year's summit. But I do have a few housekeeping items to go over with you all. And for those of you that have been with us all day, I know you know these by heart, so feel free to say them along with me. But first, if you haven't already, and before you log off, I really encourage you all to stop by that exhibit hall. There are lots of learning opportunities over there for you, so make sure you check those out. Like I've mentioned before, we do have all of the slides from the presentations as well as the full CPE list over in the resources section in the main environment, so you can always find additional stuff there as well. And in this resource session for this Webby, for those of you that were on before, you can find CPE information and slides in there as well. If you need the closed captioning feature, just look for that show icons along the bottom of your screen. And as always, if you have any technical difficulties, send us a message to that Q&A tab, and my colleague Maddie will get your questions answered. And here is the secret sauce, as it has been all day. If you have questions for our speakers, for your fellow attendees here today, go ahead and throw those in the chat. You can also chat with us in the chat portal. And in there right now, I want to know, what's been your favorite session so far? Has there been a speaker that really struck a chord with you? If so, go ahead and throw that into the chat for me. And don't worry, if you missed anything, we will send you a link to the entire event tomorrow, so you'll be able to review any of the sessions you attended as well as those sessions that you did not. All right, we are also giving out 1 CPE credit for today's session. To get the CPE credit, you're going to take the polls. You're going to stick around for the entire session, and you're going to fill out that feedback form, do those things, and we will be sending your CPE certificate. And I know there's been some technical snafus with the polls. Fear not, just send us an email to that NextGen email that my colleague Maddie is going to put in the chat here in just a second if you run into any issues with the polls. And speaking of which, I have already thrown our first poll question out for you right now. And for this one, we want to know, in what area do you most want to grow? All right, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, though, I need to take a quick second to thank our wonderful NextGen Alliance partners, WAPA, Code for America, Young Government Leaders, Cisco, ServiceNow, Laserfish, Pluralsight, Carahsoft, Atlassian, and Granicus, because we couldn't put this on for free without them. So thank you so very much to them. And I would be remiss if we did not take 1 second here to talk about the NextGen Public Service Awards. It is a hard time in government. Let's just all be honest. It's a hard time in government, and we need to praise those and honor those who are out there doing the good work that they are, and we would love to do that. So if you have a colleague, if you yourself, if you know of someone who is out there doing incredible work, please nominate them. Our nominations are open through August 1st. All right, with all of that, I want to introduce our opening keynote here. And he is here to talk about change management. Is there any change happening? I don't think so. Couldn't be change. That's why we've named this course 301. This isn't introductory change management. This is elite. So here to talk about how to keep up without getting overwhelmed is Donald Bauer, who is the Chief Technology Officer for Global Talent Management at the Department of State. Donald, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Well, welcome everybody, and I'm back. I guess I did one of these there on Pick Your Battles, and Emily reached out and said, "Okay, how about change management?" I said, "Sure." I think we're all living that right now. I will say this presentation is really geared in a leadership mindset. because we all go through change, but this is like, how as a leader could you basically, I guess, better manage your change, right? So did a little word cloud, courtesy of ChatGPT. I had to do it a few times because it started putting words up there that didn't make sense. So, but I said, generate me a word cloud that says something. So it's kind of interesting playing with the AI. All right. Oh, so strategies for navigating change with confidence. Okay. So as I think change is constant, right? We must choose to be proactive and not reactive. And I think that's important, that if you're leading an organization, I think the one quality I feel like every leader needs to develop outside of this change mindset is strategic thinking, right? Somebody in a leadership role needs to be looking over the horizon and anticipating what's coming and preparing your organization for what's next. You need to do that as a leader, because that prevents that reactive nature, right? That where you're jumping through hoops. And of course, we know when we're reactive, we are not as effective. And sometimes we make mistakes and it compounds and thrashes people. And that's something not good to do to anybody. Clear strategy transforms disruption into opportunity. And I've actually went through it here recently a couple of times. If I have time, I can share those stories. And of course, the other side of this is soft skills. This isn't something you can just pick a book up and check off the checklist as you go along. These are skills you need to develop on how you interact with people, how you treat people, how you receive feedback, how you react to feedback. All of those really kind of culminate into how your change management and your leadership style are actually perceived from the people that you're changing. And I don't say the people that work for you, because in my case, my change management dealt with the entire user population or employee population of the department. I had a cadre of HR users that I had to deal with different change for each of these populations. So it's a whole bunch of different people that you have to manage. And depending on their situation, you might have multiple levels of individuals, each that need a different change strategy for them to come along on the journey. So why it matters, okay? 70% of change efforts fail. Think about that for a minute, 70%. And I'm sure all of us can think to a time when you showed up at work one day and somebody said, we're rolling out something new, and here it is. And some people were like, what is this? You didn't tell me it was coming. It's broken. It doesn't do what I need it to. Nobody asked me. I mean, we can go on and on about how we're all impacted by things that change, especially if it's part of your job, right? You're expected to use this new thing to do your job. And I can tell you the statistic on HR projects, since I do HR or have been for the last 30 years, 75% of HR projects fail. So go figure. And they don't even talk about change management. They just say HR projects in general fail. So in this case, from a leadership standpoint, you're no longer impacted by it. You are shaping it. So this is where you have to manage both strategy and emotion. And as I told Emily, I was going to go a little geeky on her this time for this presentation. So we're going to talk about the psychology of change. And this is important because now we're getting into what I was mentioning earlier about those soft skills, right? What is the emotional reactions that are going to happen? And I think the important thing about this is we all go through this. So this is not, I'm not telling you that others go through it and you're immune from it. I got mad because they rearranged my grocery store. I mean, I was really upset because I'm a hunter-killer shopper. They rearranged my entire grocery store. I got really mad. And I was like, how could they do this? And I'm talking to the manager. It's like, why did you change the grocery store around? But the idea is that the change, and it was the shock and denial. Why would they do this? Anger, bargaining, depression, why, can we fix it? The acceptance of it. Eventually you're like, yeah, well, in some cases you have no choice. You have to accept what's there. And eventually you're like, okay, I'm behind this. It's not nearly as severe if it's a grocery store example, but it definitely rings true if it's in your work stream or something that you're responsible for within your sphere of influence. So let's talk about each one. Status quo. Okay. So how do you handle this? All right. When you're announcing change, and I rolled out a system back in 2021, right we call it mid-pandemic. And so we were all still dealing with all the other change, but the other side of it was, okay, what are we going to do? Hey, we're rolling out a new system. Okay. And everybody's like, oh, what'd you say? You're doing what? They immediately were like, okay, why is this happening? Why are you doing this? So the idea is, okay, well, let's start talking about it. Let's socialize it, right? That term socialize, just, start talking about it. It's not here yet. It's going to happen. And eventually people are like, well, why are you changing? I'm okay with what we have. Oh, well, it's not affordable. It's end of life. There are a ton of reasons why you're going to enforce change, especially in the technology world. And I can tell you in a compliance perspective, we're not allowed to keep end of life software. It's expensive. We pay the vendor extra maintenance. And obviously we're not leveraging the most recent user experience either. Most of the newer systems have a cleaner user experience. So the idea is okay, you announce it's happening, things like town halls, podcast, uh, poll sessions, whatever, the idea is you create multiple modes to get the word out, right? Nothing's happened yet. You're just talking about it. And then people are like, oh, well, this is happening. Well, you have to acknowledge it. Say, yeah, we're going to make it great, but we're going to make sure that you're included, right? That's the psychology of this, is that you need to make sure that people understand why you're doing it and invite them to go on the journey with you. Because if people perceive that they're doing it with you and not having you do it to them, totally different mindset. I think we're all of the mindset is like, if you include me and I have a chance to give you feedback and go along with you, it's a much easier thing to swallow than to just walk in one day and say, here, use it, and suck it up. The other side is, what are you hearing? How is this affecting your day to day? The other side is, don't announce it and then go run into a corner and shut your door. People are going like, hey, I have questions, right? Don't hide from it. Be visible, be available, right? And then again, something we use very, very with great effect, and there's two tools we use. One's Slido, the other one's called Poll EV, both of which allow anonymous feedback. There's a lot of people that have something to say, and they're so afraid to say it because they're afraid they get called out, or their boss is going to call them and say, why did you bring that up? You're disrupting things. So these anonymous tools allow you to collect the feedback without any fear of the individual's fear and get their name out there. And then the other side of this is, there's going to be someone in your organization that is like, I can't wait for this new thing, right? They're like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this since I got here. Those are your internal champions. Those are the people that you bring along. You say, well, come on over here. Let me show you what we're going to do in a little greater detail. That word of mouth and that confidence that person says to their peers is gold, because now all of a sudden it's not management's doing this to us. It's like, no, this is a good thing. We really should enjoy doing this. This is going to be, and here's why it's a great thing. So obviously there's a lot of tactics you can use, but and again, these are wordy slides, but they're designed for takeaway. So, the idea is that these are all techniques that you can apply for, and you can research every single one of these and get a ton of ideas online. So it's more of a tool to take with you. Next phase, anger, bargaining, depression. All right. So sometimes people get upset. Okay. And believe me, I've been on the receiving end of many angry people about when we make changes to things. Some of it's intent, some of it's earned, right? Sometimes you miss a stakeholder and you leave a population out. I mean, there are occasions where you screw up. It's happened to me. But the idea is that, let people know that, hey, you understand it's okay for them to be mad, and don't take it personally. You have to really separate the idea that because this change is happening, it's somehow your fault, right? These people are experiencing real emotions about something that's happening to them, and you just need to acknowledge it. That's part of that soft skill we were talking about: empathy, emotional intelligence, right? I saw somebody critical thinking and all those others, right? Listen more than you speak, right? A lot of times people just want to say their piece and be done with it. Give them time to vent. Don't be defensive, because if you're defensive, then people are going to assume that you're, something else is going on. So obviously, you can't fix everything. Sometimes just lending a sympathetic ear and acknowledging it is a great way to start the journey of people accepting things, right? Short-term wins, just like anything else. And of course, keep expectations realistic. And of course, if people are, and I've experienced this, if people try to undermine what you're doing, you have to address that. It's unfortunate, but from a leadership standpoint, it's one thing to disagree or not like the change. It's a whole different effort if you're trying to sabotage it, like withholding information or things like that. And as a leader, you have to recognize when that's happening. And it doesn't have to be a public flogging, but you got to pull a person aside and say, look, this has to happen. I need you with me, not against me. And maybe that's an opportunity for a negotiation or a discussion. It's like, well, why are you doing this? Why do you feel like the need to undermine what we're trying to accomplish? Right? And maybe they're a voice that wasn't listened to in the past, and there's an opportunity for you to fix that. So Okay, so next phase is kind of acceptance, where people are like, okay, it's coming, we know it is. And this is where you don't claim victory, but you say, hey, what do you think? Are you starting to understand why we're doing this? Does this make sense? And this is an opportunity to take feedback. And if the feedback's good, acknowledge it first of all, because people like to feel like they're heard. And more important, if their feedback has value to you from a leadership standpoint, then take some action on it. There's opportunities on every project to make a minor steer in some direction. And if you can satisfy a part of your population through some kind of concession or acknowledgement that this is something that could be done better, that is going to ultimately help with your accumulated trust that you're gaining with your organization and going through this transitional change, right? You have to remember that. It's equity. You're building that equity up, right? And recognize and reinforce progress, acknowledge your early adopters, as I mentioned, your champions. And then, of course, if people come up with great ideas and they fit, use them. The idea is now, all of a sudden, you're not doing something to somebody again, you're doing it with them. And people are much more willing to participate in something that they feel like they can have some impact on. And then this is very important. And I think the why is, this is what I would almost consider a foundational tenet of leadership. The why is always important. It doesn't matter. When we give people direction to go do something or support something, I don't know how many times in the past I witnessed a manager giving a task out to a subordinate, and the subordinate says, well, why do I have to do that? And it's like, don't worry about it. I just to do it because I told you so. We all know managers like that. That is such a demotivating thing to do to somebody, because if you give them a why, then they now feel connected to the outcome. So that's a very important thing, and it's always important in leadership. And that's a part of transparency. In my staff, I tell them, I won't lie to you. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer you, or I will say I can't talk about it. And we all know there are certain situations where it's either financially sensitive or whatever, depending on who the audience is, you can't talk about it. But if you have that integrity as a leader and you work with your people, then when they ask you a question, you give them an answer, then they can say, okay, I trust you. And yes, thanks for telling me why I'm doing this. Because sometimes the folks that are 6, 7, 8 layers down don't know that this thing that they're doing is important, but it is, right? Continued learning is great. And I think ultimately, especially if you're rolling out new tools and platforms, the more availability you can make for people to go in and do some self-guided training and things like that, huge benefit to you. More important, I think it's more important because it lets them kick the tires kind of in process. And if we do agile now rollouts, most of those, when you do those kinds of deployments, there's ample opportunity to make course corrections as you go along. So having people go in and play with things, are like, well, I don't like the way it does this, and we're just like, okay, well, let's look at it or think about it. And then, of course, this model of enthusiasm without pressure. A little hard for me. You could tell I'm kind of a high energy guy. I only had 1 cup of coffee today, and you guys are lucky. I switched to decaf at lunch. But anyway, the model enthusiasm without pressure is like, don't be like the guy that's like, rah, rah, this is the most awesome, because people get really worn out with it. And I've kind of been on both sides of that fence, and I kind of know. You got to kind of temper your reaction with people when it happens. And then, of course, this last one is very important. Invite feedback on what's working and what's not. And this is, again, using multiple modes. So the idea is always to say, any leader who's not open to feedback, you have a problem, right? Because you're only as good a leader as the people that you lead. And if they have feedback for you, you need to be willing to hear it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to act on everything, but you should always be open to hearing the feedback, because that's a very important thing. And then the rebuilding phase. This is at the end. The system's new. You're going to find out all the things you missed, which always happens. Reinforce the vision, link the why. Now we can say, see, this is why we did this. Don't you see it's much better for everybody now, hopefully? The idea is it's more efficient. We're getting things done faster. We're more transparent. I think, I don't know, half the projects I do result in some fancy dashboard for an executive that he can see something real time, and everybody's real excited. Like the boss can click a button and know exactly what's going on, where before it took a week of data calls and spreadsheets, wrangling to get it done. And then, of course, that idea of demonstrate what the new normal looks like, celebrate the successes and survivors. That's kind of a funny way to talk about it, but yes, Some people survive these changes, some people are successful, but hey, we always had like a, kind of a, I wouldn't call it like a champagne kind of deal, but we did kind of celebrate when something got over the hump. And most times people were appreciative of the fact that, we accomplished something, right? I mean, and that's where you really, the we comes in, right? We did it together, because you're only as good as the people that are that you're working with, and the folks that are participating in the change, and you're the one affecting the change. And then of course, this other side of listen for fatigue and fix friction, a lot of times these things roll out, and I can share a particular case. We rolled out a brand new case management system here at the department. We were so proud of ourselves. We did everything right. Change management, podcast, town halls, feedback. It was awesome. Everything was great. We were retiring a legacy platform that was super expensive, very clunky. Everybody was literally happy to see it go. So we go live, we migrate all the old cases into the new system, and we're like, we're live, life is good. And that lasted about 20 minutes. And then somebody called and said, did you know we do cases for annuitants? And I'm like, yeah, so what? Well, annuitants don't have a department email address, and they're not in our Active Directory, which means you couldn't create a case for anybody except if they were in the system. And we're kind of like, how did we miss this? For some reason, we missed the fact that you had to create a case for somebody else and use an email that wasn't part of what we call OpenNet or our internal network. So phones were blowing up, cases were crazy. And of course, we had to scramble. Like, took us 3 days to implement all the fixes, but perfect situation where we missed a total group. And we were very public about it. It just was one of those things where we missed one thing, and it caused a lot of friction. We fixed it, and now here we are. We went live in 21, so we're 4 years in. Programs running well. We continue to evolve it, and we continue to iterate on it to make it better. And we constantly are taking feedback. And then, of course, storytelling. Well, here I am. I'm telling you a story of a journey, right? The idea is, and the idea of sharing these kinds of situations are, well, what went well? What didn't go well? What could you do better next time? And what are things to avoid? So, all right, next. So, key takeaways. And again, you'll get these slides. So the hope is, just this really succinct way is like, hey, status quo, this won't affect me, denial, whatever. Why is this happening? Maybe it could work, and I'm ready to move forward, right? All of those different stages. Some of it, call it like stages of grief. It's the same kind of it all kind of flows the same way. And then we have what's called the mechanics of change. And, I felt like I needed to include this because this is more of the checking the box, right? You need the soft skills, but you also need a plan and a strategy, right? And the idea of stakeholder engagement, plans are very important, right? But I would say this stakeholder identification early on in the project, if you've got a system that's been in place for 10, 15 years, you're going to miss something. So those ideas of going out and really beating the bushes and looking at all your different case types and all the different situations and scenarios, we missed some of that. Of course, we were dealing with a system that had data from 1999, but it was so obfuscated. You couldn't even do a quick view of it. So it did make it difficult to do some analysis. Training and support, you need to make sure that's in place. And if you're running a new product or a tool, make sure you've got an expert or a SME on hand to answer questions, not only to say, why is it doing what it does, but why won't it do something you want it to do, or can it do what we want it to do in another iteration, right? Change readiness assessment. Well, if you're really working in like work streams or workflows, and this is something you've got to roll out, you got to time these things properly. You need to be mindful. Like, HR is very cyclic. There is a time of the year where we shut down all of our systems, are all data entry, because we're doing promotions, or there's another time of the year where we do pay adjustments for the whole population. We don't let people put in promotions and things while we're doing our batch processing. So you surely want to coordinate any rollouts of your tools and products around some of those events. So that really applies in that, are we ready to do this kind of a thing? Managing resistance to change, well, that's universal. It's always going to happen, It's just you're going to have to come up with these tactics or tools. And the idea is the more transparent and inclusive you are on how you're doing your change. Like for instance, we were doing agile processing. We were rolling out a new case management tool. We did a demo, a sprint we finished a sprint every 2 weeks, a cycle. We did a demonstration every 2 weeks and we recorded it. So there was never an excuse for you not to see what we were doing and give us feedback at every step of the way. And it took us about 4 months to get this out the door. So you can imagine we had, ample opportunity. The idea is people started seeing it more regularly. And then we launched our training about 2 to 3 weeks before we went live to make sure it was still fresh in people's minds when they went live. And of course, measuring and monitoring your success. And then the last one here, soft skills. Okay. So this is the idea of, okay, what are the key takeaways? Soft skills, self-awareness, right? Okay. So that's you. You need to make sure that you can, receive feedback and like myself, control your face so you don't look like you're mad, angry, or like, what did I just hear? Because that does cause people some stress. And that's building emotional intelligence for yourself, communication, listening actively, very important. It takes a lot of work to literally stop the brain from spinning while somebody's talking to you, because historically somebody starts saying something, oh, I have something to say about that. Well, at that point, you literally have turned off what they're saying, and you may miss half of what they're trying to communicate to you because you're so ready to respond. And what I've learned, and I've had to train myself because it's taken me a while, is I'll write a couple of words down on a piece of paper, a note, and then I will return and resume listening to that individual to make sure I completely hear their concern or their argument before I respond. And of course, if you saw my picking your battles session, there was a lot of strategies in there about how to, thinking about, pause, seek first to understand before understood, those kinds of things. Empathy, I think that's very important, is people are coming from different directions, and you may not feel the same way they feel, but you have to acknowledge that they feel that way. You can't tell somebody they shouldn't feel a certain way. They're going to feel the way they feel. And part of it is understanding that and then saying, okay, well, I understand how you feel. And here's how I view that, from my perspective on including you or going on this journey. Adaptability, embracing discomfort, and model resilience. Okay. And there's going to be hiccups. Things are going to go sideways, but half of it is keeping a steady hand, not being too high, not being too low, understanding that there's always going to be speed bumps. And, a lot of times when something doesn't go as exactly as planned, the first thing people do is they look at the leader and they go, okay, is he going to get mad? Is he going to throw things? Is he going to, because we all have leaders like that. Like, yeah, somebody slams the door, whatever the case may be. Or did that person go, darn it, I was hoping this wouldn't happen. Let's get it fixed. Let's find out why it happened. How you react to some of these things sets the tone for the rest of the organization on how they're going to ultimately handle it. Because if you stay calm, then everybody else is going to stay calm. If you react, it's contagious, right? Coaching, this is where I mentioned earlier, if somebody's undermining you and, there's the standard rule, right? Praise in public, punish in private. If somebody you feel is like swimming upstream, pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on? Can we talk about this? Is there something I can do? What am I missing? Use the tactic to get to the root of why somebody may be maybe not even intentionally sabotaging you, but by virtue of their actions, they are, right? And then collaboration. I feel like that's a very critical, that people understand that it's a team effort, that it takes everyone to make the change impactful, and that, that's part of that feedback loop. And one thing I didn't mention earlier that was very successful for us when it comes to, once you go live and you're like licking your wounds, as some people would say, we did something called office hours. So for about 2 weeks after we went live, every day from 11 to 1, somebody was in a Teams meeting waiting if you wanted to drop by. And the beauty of the new tools that we have now, I can roll into a Teams meeting, share my screen, show you exactly what I'm seeing, and have an expert kind of guide you on, hey, what kind of hiccup are you having right now? Those office hours were invaluable because you just can't anticipate how people are going to use your tools as much as you train and you direct and you put business logic in. That's one of those things that those office hours are invaluable. And it's a great opportunity to get feedback in a much more organic way, because somebody may not be able to articulate to you why they're having a problem. And once you look over their shoulder and go, that's not as intuitive as we thought, we need to change it. So just something for a reminder. And I think there we go. Whew. So change is inevitable. Effective leadership is optional, but it makes all the difference. And I've included a bunch of links in here. There's tons of toolkits out there. Some of them are more on the mechanical side, some of them more on the soft skill side. Hey, there's no one size fits all, but I think you should, there's great resources here to lean into. Hopefully this will give you a little bit of a way to go. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Donald. I didn't think you were going to fit all of that into your allotted time, but you're like the Energizer Bunny over there. I appreciate it so very much. All right. We can't let you escape though without giving one final kind of takeaway or piece of advice. And I've been asking all of our keynotes to kind of think about this. There's this feeling right now that there's a lot happening in government, good, bad, changing, lots. What one thing do you want folks to keep in mind that who are working in government right now? What? Tell them what you're feeling. What would do you want them to know?
I guess, I hear the term North Star a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I am a mission obsessed leader. Okay. I care about what we're producing and how we're supporting those. Since I'm in HRIT, we run all the personnel systems, all that. So the focus is on the mission, right? And there's a lot of this is noise and distraction. And at some point, the job still needs to get done. So many people who are in various levels in the organization aren't dealing with a lot of the churn, but it's disruptive because people talk and they get nervous. Like you say, it's very counterproductive in the organization. But just remind people, stay focused on the mission, do your job. You know how to do your job. Most of my people are phenomenal at their job. And then remember, this too shall pass, right? I mean, eventually things are going to change again. We've been through this. I mean, I'm on my fourth administration. Every single one of them brings a curveball to the table in one form or fashion. You got to accept it, but don't lose sight of the fact that, you got each other and do your jobs, right? And hopefully as a leader, you can protect your people. So.
Love it. All right. Thanks again, Donald. Really appreciate it. All right. Here to bring us home and to really talk about the importance of your network and growing your community, both within your organization more broadly, is the wonderful Melvin Brown, who is the former executive director at OPM and who is currently an independent consultant with the Contract Administration Network International. Melvin, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Emily, and thanks, Gobloop, for hosting such a great event.
Oh,
It's a privilege to join you today to speak about a topic that has been instrumental in shaping careers, driving innovation, and opening doors to opportunities. It's the importance of networking.
it is. It very much is. All right. And we're going to get into it in one hot second. I just want to let our audience know that we do have your second poll question up of this hour, poll question number 2. So go ahead and take that for us. All right, Melvin. You were leaning into this already with your intro there, but your network is incredibly important, but it's not necessarily as easy as snapping your fingers and being like, hey, friends, let's gather together and get some great energy going. So, what can you do to build a network that is meaningful?
So, while many of us associate networks with exchanging business cards or attending events, the truth is, networking is not merely a transactional activity, it's a transformational one. It's the lifeblood of growing, learning, and leadership in industry, especially in the age of defined change, complexity, and connections. So let's begin with the simple truth. Relationships are the currency of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're seeking a new job, launching a new business, navigating a complex project, or looking for advice during a crisis, the people you know, and more importantly, the people who know you, can make the critical difference. A strong network amplifies your voice, extends your reach, and allows you to tap into insight influence, and opportunities that simply wouldn't exist if you were in isolation.
Yeah. So, how do you do this? What are the steps? Honestly, sometimes I'm like, I really they talk about it in motherhood all the time that you need your village. If you're gonna be a new mom in this world, or an old mom, whatever mom you are, or dad, you need the village. But creating your village can be so difficult. So give me some advice for expanding that network outside of, let's say, my direct team, my colleagues, something like that. How do I meet people and get to know them when they're I can't see them basically?
Well, okay, so let's talk about timing.
Okay.
One of the most common mistakes people make is waiting until they need a network to try to build one.
Ah, yes.
And so you want to dig your well before you're thirsty.
Okay.
And so the best time to build your network is before you need it. So think about planting a seed. So you don't plant seeds in the middle of a drought. You don't plant them early, nurture them, and then grow it into something that you can sustain over time. Relationships need to be cared for and they need to be consistent. A quick email to check in, a coffee to reconnect, a recommended share, those small acts compounded over time and over months and years is the best way to build your network. And so I'll give a quick story and an example. Early in my career, I attended a professional event in ITs because I'm in IT. I attended this networking event. Well, I met somebody that was from a different field from mine. We stayed friends over almost a decade. And I came up with a challenging project within the organization. And I remembered that person and I reached out. Well, that reach out provided me with critical advice that I needed to get that project to the finish line. And so the first place you want to do is go to networking events and be intentional about it in the sense that you're going to, if nothing else, meet one person and befriend that and genuinely befriend that one person and then nurture that relationship over time. Find somebody that you have something in common with and then nurture that over time.
Yeah. I think that find someone you have something in common with can be a little bit difficult sometimes for folks who aren't. I don't like the term extrovert and introvert because I think it means different things than what it actually means. But there are some people who are naturally good at going up to someone they don't know and saying, "Hi, my name is Emily. I lead the event team at GovLoop." And some people aren't. And while it might seem like I'm a social butterfly, I am not. You put me in a social situation and I'm like, where is the food and how can I get out of here as quickly as possible? So, what advice do you have for folks who are more reticent to make those connections in ways that are authentic and genuine?
So for those people that feel uncomfortable about networking or think of themselves as introverts,
Mm-hmm.
know this. Networking is not about being an extrovert. It's about being intentional. You don't need to know everyone. You just need to know the right people. And more
Ah,
importantly, you too need to be known for something. And so that's the key. Whether it's your expertise, your reliability, your vision, or your integrity, be intentional about how you show up and then make every interaction meaningful. Networking is not about volume, it's about authenticity and follow through.
mm-hmm.
Let's also acknowledge the role of technology, Emily, that
Yeah.
can play into this. And
Okay.
so LinkedIn, GovLoop virtual events, and even social media have changed the way we connect, but not why we connect.
Ah,
Technology is a tool, but not a substitute for genuine engagement. So
yeah.
think about that.
Yeah. I think that's so critically important. And we're getting a lot of good questions into the Q&A. So Melvin, I'm listening to you, but I'm also getting distracted because there's so many good questions coming in. But that connection piece is so critical because that's what sticks around after the initial meeting, right? If you don't have that connection, you're just a transaction. Here's my business card. Here's my LinkedIn message that's like, hey, how are you? What are you doing? It's the follow-up that is so critically important. And that is so difficult, if not impossible to do if you aren't out there making that genuine connection. All right. I've got the questions, Melvin, that you and I prepared, but here we go. I'm going rogue and I'm going to our audience questions because, well, that's the way we're living our lives these days. So Tracy asked, she said, how do you network if you feel like you don't have anything to offer yet? Tracy, you have more than enough to offer. But if you're just starting out or starting over, maybe you're trying to get into a new position, you don't have a lot of experience in that field yet. I go to these events, I want to get out there, do these things. How do I do that if I feel like I don't have the 8-page resume to back up what I'm talking about?
So I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Everybody on this webinar should have everybody's LinkedIn connection. Connect with everybody here. And so you can connect with me. My name's Melvin Brown. I will take your LinkedIn connection.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I need it now or I'll need it tomorrow, but you're going to be great in the future. And so as you're building your brand, you've also built that network before you needed it. So that's a great way to do that. Every time you go to the event or you take a class, a perfect example, I took a class at one of the universities. They say connect with your colleagues. I went in, I went through all my classmates. I sent them all a LinkedIn invite just because we share, if nothing else, we shared the fact that we were in that class. And so the thing that you all have in common right now is you're here at this GovLoop webinar. And so you foundationally have that in common. And you can now connect with people to talk about, if nothing else, the sessions you attended and which ones were your favorite and what were the lessons learned and takeaways. And then you can build friendships from there. So I'd say start here, start now with what's already in front of you.
All right. I love it. And I hope you don't mind, but I just threw your LinkedIn in the chat. So prepare to make a whole lot of new friends, Melvin.
Not a problem.
All right. So here is the $1,000,000 question. How do you make yourself known, meet new people without coming across as self-centered? I don't know how many networking events I've been to in DC where the first question is, who do you work for? What do you do? And it gets a little, sometimes it gets a little icky, right? It doesn't feel right. So how do you make these connections, create a network that helps you build your path forward without getting the ick? That's what I'm going to call it, the ick.
The ick. Okay, I like the ick. And so one of the things that has worked well for me is to give more than I receive. And so I've learned that if you can help as many people get what they want in life, they'll help you get what you want when you need it. And so make giving your priority and not getting, and then become known as a giver, become known as somebody that can get things done. And when you do that, you'll become remarkable. And remarkable means worth making a remark about. And so if you, yeah, see, look at that. And so you want to be remarkable. You want to be the person that people are making positive remarks about. And if you do that, you'll begin to become attractive in both the your space, spirit, and influence.
Yeah. All right. So one of the questions in here is talking about practicalities. And I love to be a tactical lady. So the question says, if your organization does not provide you with business cards or those types of things, right? I'm going to this event. I want people to know me. How do you create those? Do you just make those yourself? What do you recommend for folks that maybe aren't provided a list of things that perhaps would make networking a little bit easier?
I am not a business card person. I don't have business cards. I haven't had business cards in years.
Me
And so
neither.
I use LinkedIn, and so LinkedIn has a QR code in the search key that connects people within the LinkedIn app. And so I tell people all the time, the reason I like that is because I can put a face with a face. I get a
Mhm.
business card. I got a stack of business cards. I should have took a picture of them and put it up in the slide, but I got a stack of business cards on my desk. I can't put a face to any of them. And I don't even remember half the time where I met people. So I will tell you that business cards are not I don't think it's a modern form of a connection. I'd say LinkedIn gives me the ability to go back. I can say, oh, that was Emily. Oh, I remember her. She was phenomenal. I need to connect with her. Let me send her a note.
Okay. All right. I love it. LinkedIn really is the path forward. Maybe they'll sponsor NextGen next year. Who knows? We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. All right. The questions keep coming in quick and furious, but if you've been holding back on asking a question, stop it. Put your questions in early and often. Okay. This is a good one, and this one comes up quite a bit. We're busy. We're busy. I mentioned I got a toddler somewhere around this house, somewhere. I've got a husband. We've got family. We've got friends. We've got workplace responsibilities. I'm not hitting up networking hours every night after work, and neither are most of the people on this call either. So, how do you network and also do your job and maintain kind of some of the work-life balance, if that even exists at all?
So networking isn't all about outside activity. You can network even within your organization. Have lunch with somebody in the organization that you haven't had lunch with before. Somebody that you admire, somebody that's going where you want to go, and they can be a mentor for you. So it's not always about going to networking events. A lot of times the networking is right there, right? You can network, within your community. So if you go to church, there might be people at your church that you might have something in common with. At your kid's school, there might be, another parent that you might go to lunch with, or you guys might go out to do. So you gotta look for there's volunteer organizations where you might be volunteering. Might want to start networking there. So there are other ways to network outside of just the normal networking events. Try to build it as a part of your natural routine, as a part of your day to day. So look at where you spend a lot of your time, and then start to connect with people that way.
Yeah. Um, I love that the chat has just become one big networking in action. People are throwing their stuff in there. Okay, this is going to be a question because someone was looking at your LinkedIn profile, Melvin, and they said, "I think he's from Ohio based on your information." No, no, maybe not. I don't know. But it begs the question of how much should you know about other people before you meet them? So if I'm going and I'm like, I want to meet Melvin because he was at OPM and he was doing da 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 da. How do I come across to you without freaking you out a little bit? If I'm like, hey, here is this information that I know about you. Here's where I want to meet you. How do I use the information that I have to a benefit without kind of creeping people out?
So one of the things that I've used, so there's a couple of ways. One, I've examined LinkedIn AI to help me write personalized welcome connections, and it seems to be working pretty well. And I'll read the draft and make sure that it's not creepy, but they do a pretty good job of just saying, "Hey, I've been impressed by some of the work that you've been doing in this space. I'd love to learn more and connect with you on how we might be able to collaborate going forward in this area," and send a note.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. It's just that simple.
Just that simple. I think sometimes we meaning I overcomplicate some of this in our heads, right? It we're not trying to generate a meet cute like they do in a romantic comedy. I'm trying to meet someone in an effort to talk about something where we have a mutual interest or there is a reason that potentially that connection could help benefit both of us in some way, shape, or form. So I think sometimes just getting out of your own way when you're thinking about these networking opportunities is so useful. All right. We are rapidly running out of time here, but I've got a few more quick questions for you from our audience, from us as well. So you hinted at this at the beginning a little bit, talking about the digital world that we're in right now. And we've talked pretty extensively here about kind of the use of LinkedIn and those kind of programs. But a lot of times now, we're working in distributed workforces where teams might be located all across the country, or you're trying to interact with someone in a different place. How can you create and foster these relationships in a digital world where maybe face-to-face interaction aren't going to be possible? We're not bonding over the cheese at the table at the networking event. How can we bond in this networking world?
Well, I've got friends that live across the country. I've got friends that are in different time zones. And I think, it goes back to being intentional. And so, maybe you have a virtual happy hour where you just get together with some of your friends that are in virtual areas and you guys just sit around and, in the comfort of your home and just catch up, just
Yeah.
like you would at a networking event. Only this time it's a little more controlled, Emily, because I'm only inviting the people that I want to hang out with.
Mhm.
You set up time. I've got my college roommates. We've got times, once a quarter where we'll get on Zoom and just catch up and see where we're doing and how we're doing. So I think you got to be intentional, almost, the way you would on date night. If you don't put it on the calendar, it won't get done. And
Yeah.
so I would just strongly recommend that if you, want to connect with your colleagues in other areas, offer up, take what you would normally do in a in-person setting and just make it virtual.
Okay.
It does work.
All right, let's talk about the flip side of
Uh-oh.
networking. I know. So far, we've been talking about the requester. I want information from you. I want to create your connection, right? What about the other side? So we got a great question into the Q&A portal of being like, I reach out to all these people and I never hear back. What is how do you think about people connecting with you? What do you think is the responsibility, if there is any, on the recipient to kind of continue that dialogue?
I- You're responsible for what you put out, but you're not responsible for what you get back.
Yeah.
And so, there are a couple of things that, my wife is kind of had my head crossed a little bit, but after I thought about it, I'm like, maybe she's got a point. She says, you accept LinkedIn's for everybody. I'm like, well, yeah, as long as they've got a photo and I can see them,
Yeah.
I'll do it. And
Yeah.
that's become my mantra. If there's a photo and I can see it's a real person,
Yeah.
then I normally accept them. But the dialogue happens when there's something of interest or value that I need or they need, or they're offering me something that I need. I will tell you the ones that try to convince them that I reached out to them and now they're trying to sell me something. I
Yeah.
just okay. I ignore it.
Yeah.
We have a relationship and maybe that connection connects me with somebody else.
Yeah.
But outside of that, if they've got a photo, I'll do it. But if there's no photo and I can't really see, can't see who they are, I won't accept it.
Yeah. I think it is hard because there is the term ghosting is around, right? Like I reach out to you, I don't hear anything back, I've been ghosted. And I think there is in the culture today, there's this permission to kind of ghost folks. And I think sometimes that's really hard, especially I'll tell a story and she won't mind. My best friend in the whole world worked at USAID. And that
Mm.
organization has obviously changed quite a bit. And she was let go from her position a couple of different times. And so she's actively on the job hunt. And so she was saying, I've applied for, and Sam's incredible. She's like, I've applied for 200 plus positions, right? And I don't hear anything back from anyone, right? I reach out to the recruiters online. I'm reaching out to different people within the organization who are in kind of the structure, and I don't hear anything back. And she's like, it's so discouraging. And she was kind of talking about this in her experience, and I think it's so real because there is this feeling sometimes out there right now, like, I'm putting this information out there, there's an expectation that it's going to come back, and it's a hard balance to navigate because that recruiter is probably also getting inundated with thousands of messages every day, and they can't keep up with it. So it's really hard, I think, in this environment to hit that balance right. I'm trying to engage, I'm trying to network, I'm trying to do this for career growth. Um, but there's kind of some limits in place here. And I think it's also important to kind of acknowledge some of that type of stuff. Have you seen any of that as well, Melvin, as you're kind of looking in this networking space, that there's a lot happening right now. There's a lot of communication, and sometimes it's difficult to keep up with all of that.
Well, I think you have to. So one of the things that I've tried to do is to be a content creator. And so, looking at your field, looking at your area of expertise, what can you contribute back to the community?
Yeah.
And then if I'm going to follow someone, I'm only following people that are consistent with the content that I'm creating or the values that I share.
Yeah.
That way I don't get overwhelmed with all of the noise
Yeah.
that's going on.
I think that's so important. All right, we are rapidly running out of time today. So, Melvin, I've got two final questions for you. Uh, Here's the first one. It's from Damien over here in the chat. He said, so how do you know when you're reaching out to get help in a personal development, like a job, not being interpreted as being used by a person, or they're always willing to help you grow? I think the question here is, how do you make sure that your messages are personal and resonating, and with purpose, when you're sending out maybe perhaps quite a few messages?
Well, I think you should personalize it. You should, one, stop to personalize it to the individual.
Yeah.
And so make sure your ask is to the individual. And so
Right.
if Emily bakes apple pies, I don't want to be talking to her about peaches. So if she's a great moderator, I want to talk to her about moderating in GovLoop, and how can I help, and can I be a panelist? I have an area of expertise that I want to share. Maybe I want to do that, but you want to personalize the request for the person that you're talking to. That way, it does come across as genuine. It comes across as if you've at least done your homework. The last thing you want to do is be that, and I'll give you an example. I don't want to be that dad who, when his son brought a girl home, he mentioned the other girl that he brought home the last time. That's probably not gonna go well. And so,
Oh,
yeah, see your face.
oh,
That's not gonna go well. So
oh.
you don't want to be that parent, and you don't want to be that person on LinkedIn where you've emailed somebody with somebody else's name, and
Mhm.
the things don't match.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm just imagining this scenario playing out for my son when he comes home with his partner in a couple, well, hopefully like 15 years. I don't know, he's only two. But I'm trying to imagine that right now. All right. And then Melvin, I'm going to give you an opportunity, just like I have with all of the other keynotes today. What's your what's your parting words you want to leave with our government community here today? They're out there, they're doing a lot of hard work. What piece of advice or thought do you want them to think about?
Yeah, thank you, Emily, and thank you again, Go Look, for the opportunity. I will tell you, February 27th of this year, I walked out of OPM. I turned in my equipment the morning of the 28th, and it was my last day of federal service after 33 years and 7 months. And we were just about ready to lay off about 400 people, and so I had an all hands with the team, and I will share with you what I shared with them because I think it's relevant right now. I said, 4 years ago, we came here with intent on building, and we defined the organization is that we wanted to become the standard by which all others are measured. And Dr. Benjamin Mays, President Emeritus at Morehouse College, said that the definition of greatness is not prestige and power, but it is those that are able to close the gap between who they are and who they might become. And we don't have to ask ourselves what great leadership looked like because we had it. We don't have to ask ourselves what a great organization looked like because we built it. We don't have to wonder what the standard was because we became it. We all have an intended level of greatness, and those that close the gap between who they are and who they can become will be great. And I believe, because you've been a part of this, I'm going to share this with you because whenever you have participated in or helped develop greatness, it will always be with you wherever you go. And so I'll say this to you in final closing. You were born to be great. Now go be great. Thank you, Emily.
Well, thank you. I said I wasn't going to cry, and you're making it very, very difficult not to cry, Melvin. But those were some very perfect words to end us with, and I appreciate that message here today. And I really can't believe that I'm saying this, but it is now time for our final poll. It's up right now. And for this one, we want to know, are you going to be back here in October for part 2 of NextGen for 2025? We hope you are. And while you're kind of taking that poll and getting all the final information, we will just leave you with our closing words. So, first, you are exactly where you need to be in this moment. So remember to enjoy the space between where you are and where you go. The journey is so incredibly important. Secondly, the government needs you. It needs people like you who will shape and transform our government for the better. And we know you don't get told it a lot. So thank you for what you do. Next, trust yourself. You know more than you think you do, and your voice matters so very much. So please, please, please use it. Remember that you are powerful, that you are strong, and you are capable, and don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. And finally, you've got this. You've survived so much. Shutdowns, political uncertainties, pandemics, and so much more. And you are stronger and smarter for it. So here's to making the best of the remainder of 2025. I know where I will be next October. I'll be here, hopefully, with all of you. And before we log off, we wouldn't be able to put the summit on without a whole bunch of different people and organizations. So the first is I have to thank our NextGen Partner Alliance one last time for making today possible. Their generous support has allowed us to provide this year's summit for free to all of our attendees. And the NextGen Alliance partners are WAPA, Code for America, Young Government Leaders, Cisco, ServiceNow, Laserfiche, Pluralsight, Carasoft, Atlassian, and Granicus. We couldn't put this summit on without you. And it's not like this is an Emily show. In fact, this is a NextGen is a work of our entire team, and it is only possible through the collective effort of this team. Maddie, John, Leah, Karina, Jessica, Eric, Casey, Caitlin, Andrew, Julia, Candace, Kelly, Lauren, Megan, Doug, and so many more people here at GovLoop. Thank you all for making NextGen a reality. From all of us to all of you, thank you so very much. Go out, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at NextGen in October. Bye.